In my ministry experience, there's one question that I think it's a very important question. And I heard it quite often that often enough that early on in my life before ministry and even in early in my ministry, I realized this was a central question and I didn't have a very good answer for it. The question is, how do I know if I'm saved? Well, that's a legitimate question. A, a lot of the source of that question comes from the fact that being saved, knowing I'm saved, is, well, it's a moving target. And this is my experience for why that is. There are times I feel saved and times I don't feel saved. And that sets up a tension that this question comes out of. Well, John offers an answer to that question, and we're in 1 John chapter 3. We're in verse 19. This is how we know that we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. That really is the essence of the question, how do I know I'm saved? How can my heart be settled on this question? I want to belong to the truth. Do I belong to the truth? Good question. And here is John's response, verse 20. If our hearts condemn us, pause. They do. It, almost as though, in my mind, I could think of this as when our hearts condemn us, because my heart does condemn me. My heart, Jeremiah said, the heart is deceitful above all things. It is. My heart is central to my being, and we're not talking about, obviously, the organ that pumps blood. We're talking about the seat of our emotion, the substance of who we are, our heart. It is supremely unreliable. How is it? Do you ever experience that my heart now makes me feel good, or I have this great feeling about myself, but 20 minutes later I have a horrible feeling about myself? If our hearts condemn us, why do our hearts condemn us? I think they condemn us for one of two and sometimes both reasons. Generally, my heart condemns me because I feel guilty. Now, there's two kinds of guilt. That's why I said there's two things here. There is real guilt. There's false guilt. Real guilt is what I feel, the emotion that is derived, that is at work in my heart, because I actually have committed a sin. I have done something wrong. I have hurt someone, or, in our culture, unfortunately, that emotion kind of gets jumbled up with the regret of being caught. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I feel a conviction. I feel guilt because I did something wrong. And then there is false guilt, where I feel guilt even though I didn't do something wrong. False guilt, in my experience, is as powerful as real guilt. You see, the truth and the lie are both incredibly powerful. I would love it if I could say, when the truth trumps the lies. Not always. Not the truth. The truth will set you free. Jesus said it, and it's true. the truth will set you free. But something has to happen for us to, we permit the truth to trump the lie. And John writes, if our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts, and He knows everything. This is, it doesn't seem like a very good answer to the question, how can I know if I'm in the truth? How can I know that I'm saved? How can I have a confidence about this? Well, and yet it is a substantial answer. When my heart condemns me, and it does pretty routinely, when my heart condemns me, I know God is greater than my heart, and He knows everything. He knows where there are times when I can't sift through to see the difference between real guilt and false guilt. Well, God does instantly. He knows everything. He knows my motive. He knows my strengths and my weaknesses. And He doesn't despise me for my weaknesses or love me for my strengths. He just loves me. John goes on, verse 21. Dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence with God and receive from Him anything we ask, because we keep His commandments and do what pleases Him. This is a hard one too. When my heart doesn't condemn me, I do feel confident before God. But when it does condemn me, that confidence, if it doesn't go away, it sure shrinks down. All right? That happens. But you go back and don't forget, God is greater than our hearts, and He knows everything. So, when we depend on the fact that God is greater than my heart, and He does know everything, if I can convince myself to believe this, then I have confidence before God. And one of the things that happens when I have this confidence before God is that I receive from Him anything I ask. Whoa. Okay, we're not matching up here with my reality or my experience of reality. I don't get everything I ask God for. Come on. Well, and in fact, it's actually a pretty good thing that I don't get everything I ask God for, because there are a lot of times I'm asking for stuff that seems good to me in the moment, but if you run it down the trail, it's not very good in the long run. I don't get everything I ask from God. What in the world? Hey, okay. Look, there's a fog here. There's a fog here and a disconnect in my mind between me having confidence before God because His knowledge has set my heart at rest. And I have this feeling, this confidence before Him. And so that equals I get everything I ask for? Wow. We receive from Him anything we ask because we keep His commands and do what pleases Him. Okay, now that sets us up for a context. One of the ways that context can get set up is that there is this condition for God answering all of our prayers when we obey all His commands and everything we do pleases Him, okay? That's how we set ourselves up in this quid pro quo relationship. I do what you tell me to do, and then you do what I ask you to do. That kind of is wonky with the rest of the New Testament and a good bit of the Old Testament. Obedience is never shunned. It's never the value of sincere, loving obedience is never devalued throughout the entire Bible, Old or New Testament. But is it possible, and I'm going to tell you, this is where I fall into this category, that because he says, because we keep his commands and do what pleases him, when that is the summary of my life's activities, I keep his commands and I do what pleases him, that these two things are my top priorities. When I am living in that way, does it not make sense that I'm probably going to be asking God for things that fit within his design? We got to go on, because he identifies the command in verse 23. And this is his command: to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as he has commanded us. It seems like it ought to get easier, but it's not. Is it just so easy? Does it come down to this? All I have to do is believe in the name of Jesus. And then I love other people the way Jesus loved them, and that's the deal. That's the whole of it. I mean, that is, there's nothing else. Kind of. I mean, it really does come down to that. Let's look at, what does it mean to believe in the name of Jesus? In the 80s, 70s and 80s, songwriters, Christian songwriters, were enamored with the name of Jesus. Now, you remember that, you have to be old, but if you're old, I bet you a nickel, and you've been in the church a while, you remember that old Gaither song, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. There's just something about that name. Well, yeah. More recently, I've heard what I think is sorry, I'm throwing a rock. I think it's pretty trite as a worship song. Say the name of Jesus, as though just speaking the name of Jesus makes all kinds of stuff go away. All problems evaporate. When you speak the name of Jesus, there's power in the name of Jesus. There is. But you have to understand what something in the name of someone else means. Okay? In the times of John, in century 1, and for more than just the first century, for several hundred years, the name of someone was kind of a little, I guess maybe I'd say it was a handle for all that person represented, all that person was. The name of Steve has to do with my character, who I am, what I do, what I have done, what I can be counted on for. This is, the name is the character, the being. It carries that. In our day, when you sign a check, that once every year you have to sign a check. Most of the time you're throwing a debit card at it or whatever. Checks are, I haven't had to order checks in a long, long time because I do things electronically, and maybe you do too. But anyway, when you sign your name on that check, it essentially guarantees that the amount of money written into the space will be provided by the one whose name appears on the check. So I'm sending, a gazillion dollars to the IRS in the name of Stephen Thomas. They don't like it when I sign my check Stevie Boy. In the name of, all right, what does it mean to believe in the name of Jesus? I don't want to hurt your feelings if you feel this way, but I got to say it. That does not mean believing there is magic when you speak Jesus. That's not what that means. It means believing in the character of the one who carries that name. Going to have to quit. Come back to this later, next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.